Richard, first of all, it's a huge honor for Enigma magazine and for Cairo, for all of us to have your time tonight. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you very much.
And I wanted to start by talking about the Egyptian Revolution, which is something that inspired all of us very much. As somebody so influential abroad, how did the Egyptian Revolution inspire you?
I think that living in a free country is something which is just so important for every aspect of everybody's life. I mean, it just it lifts this enormous burden off people's shoulders. And for most Egyptians, in fact, I think pretty well all Egyptians, they just never known the beauty of democracy. I know it's perhaps by no means perfect yet, but it's an awful lot better than what was before. And it's in its infancy, and I think that we just have to hope that it gets better and better.
Let's get personal. For our audience and our viewers that are watching on television, tell us about your amazing success story. You have probably one of the most amazing success stories. You started at such a young age. There's been so much in the press about your success stories. I'd love to hear your version.
Strangely, I'm dyslexic, which basically is something that afflicts some people, and they find learning conventional education quite difficult. But I think dyslexics can be quite good at other things. So when I was 15, I was interested in what was going on in the world, and like many young people, was very, very anti the Vietnamese War. It was an unjust war, a terrible mistake, acknowledged as much by Robert McNamara, the defense minister, many years later. And so I decided to leave school and start a magazine to try to campaign against the war. I didn't have any money. And so I worked out of the school phone box trying to sell advertising. And I felt that if I could sell enough advertising to pay for the printing and the paper costs, then I could risk leaving school to start the magazine. And somehow this young voice managed to persuade Coca-Cola's and the other people to part with enough money to pay for the printing and the paper costs so we could print 50,000 copies of the first edition. And people liked the magazine. It was the 60s. It was a time when students were demonstrating on the streets. There was the Biafran War. There was Provos in Holland. There was a lot to write about. It was an exciting time. And then using, on the back of the magazine, just starting living life, I came across situations where I felt I could improve other people's lives, and which is basically the premise of starting any business. If you can see that something's not being done well by somebody else, or if you feel you can actually get in there and do it better, then you have the makings of a business. One day a young artist came to us and he had a beautiful tape, but he couldn't find any record companies to put it out. So we formed a little record company and we put his music out, and people loved the music. It was called Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield. And it was the starting of what became maybe the main independent record company in the UK. I'm inquisitive. Our brand has become a sort of way of life brand. I mean, most brands specialize in one area. You get Nike, they specialize in shoes, or Microsoft in computers, or Coca-Cola in soft drinks. The Virgin brand is a way of life brand, and partly reflects my inquisitiveness. I just love learning about new things, and I love challenging the people around me. And
did you always have this vision of creating a brand? Was it all about building a brand and starting several companies under this brand, or was it something more organic, that every time you saw an opportunity, it grew?
It was much more organic. I mean, I think your brand or your name is simply your reputation. I mean, and you have to fight in life to protect your reputation or protect your brand. It's everything. Nothing is more important. But never thought I was a businessman. I just came across situations where I thought, damn it, we can do better than this. I mean, I was traveling from Puerto Rico to the Virgin Islands one evening, and I had my love of my life waiting for me in the Virgin Islands, and I was 26 years old, and American Airlines bumped us all. They decided to cancel the flight because there weren't enough people for the plane. I was determined to get there that night, and so I went to the back of the airport, hired a plane, I borrowed a blackboard, and I wrote on the blackboard $29, single, one way, I called it Virgin, to the Virgin Islands, and then I walked around all the people who were waiting, and I filled up my first plane. when we arrived in the Virgin Islands, somebody put their arm around me and said, sharpen up the service a bit and you could be in the airline business. And it got me thinking, when I got back to the UK, I rang up Boeing and I said, hello, this is Richard Branson. I wonder whether you have a second-hand 747 for sale. And initially they didn't take me very seriously, and I don't blame them. And they started asking me questions. What's the name of your company? I said, Virgin. What are the artists you've got on your record label? We got the Rolling Stones, we got the Sex Pistols, But anyway, in the end, they just said, with a name like Virgin, we just hope that if you do go into the airline business, it will actually go the whole way. But anyway, they sent a salesperson over, and we ended up getting one second-hand 747, and we started.
And for anybody in the audience that wants to grow their brand, and obviously not at the level you've done, but just to grow their brand, what would you recommend the steps to do so?
If you enjoy something, it's quite likely you'll see ways that you could do it better than other people. So if you feel you can do it better than other people and you can improve other people's lives, maybe that's the thing to start with. Next most important thing, once you've actually got the idea, is to get good people around you. And I think you've got to find people who really believe in what you're trying to build. You've got to be a wonderful leader if you're going to build a business. You've got to be a good listener, which I think is absolutely key to being a good leader. You've got to be good at praising people. I think too many bosses are jumping down people's throats all the time. People need watering, just like a flower needs watering. They need praise. You may need to use yourself to get out and promote your business. I mean, trying to take full-page advertising, it's expensive, or taking small adverts. From a young age, advice I was given was use yourself, try to get the stories on the front pages of the newspaper, and do something fun that makes people smile. You're obviously going to have to work very hard for a while, but quite soon on in building your business, learn the art of delegation. If you want to build a successful business, don't try to do it all yourself. Too many people cling on, and they have no family life, their children never see them. They may not necessarily be that good at dealing with people. Find somebody who's to manage your business on a day-to-day basis, and free yourself up to go and think about the bigger picture. Free yourself up to maybe move the company forward into other areas. Free yourself up to be a true entrepreneur and maybe do a second business. Free yourself up to be able to troubleshoot when things are going wrong. Free yourself up to be able to go and promote, do the big promotion to put the business on the map. Being able to delegate is perhaps one of the most important things, I think, in early on in building a business.
And as you know, Egypt is currently facing a very difficult economic and political situation, which is offering a huge challenge for a lot of people in business here. I'm sure you've faced many challenges in your career. What is the best advice you have for overcoming such outside challenges from the environment?
Any time that any of us feel down in life, the chances are that things will get better. I think that after the euphoria of the revolution, there's obviously going to be a time when people feel slightly deflated. The economy is slightly deflated for obvious reasons, but also the world economy is deflated at the moment. But in situations like this, there are very often opportunities. And what Egypt needs is thousands of young people, older people, just to try to start a little business, because it's the small businesses that will create the jobs that will get the economy going again.
And for the young Egyptians out there who want to start their own business but don't have the courage or what they feel are the means to do it, is there any advice you have for them?
A lot of people do not have the courage to try to start a business. And all I would say, I've written a book called Screw It, Just Do It. And it basically is trying to say to people, just give it a try. And you can sometimes start businesses without financial backing. It's not easy, but it's possible. One of the first businesses we started was a mail order company. And in order to get the money, get our mail order company going, we would hand out leaflets outside concerts and on the streets. Literally, I was doing it myself. And then we would get the money in from those leaflets, then we'd buy the products, then we'd sell them out. Obviously today, you've got the internet, so you don't necessarily need to stand on the street. But try to come up with imaginative ways of trying to fund the company.
Great. Let's talk about Virgin Galactic.
A few years ago, we decided, let's get out there, let's see if we can find an engineer who can build a spaceship. And I traveled the world and met all sorts of strange people. Found one a genius in America called Burt Rutan. And we invested in him, and he built Spaceship One that won the X Prize, which did 3 trips into space. Now we're building Spaceship Two, which is much bigger and should be ready about 12 to 18 months. I think will be the start of a really exciting new era of space travel. And it will also, I think, enable us to put satellites into space, much more cheaply and so maybe universities could have their own satellites, even schools maybe one day, who's to know. We've also got our engineers working on point-to-point travel at incredible speeds, but going outside the Earth's atmosphere and down again. And as somebody who spends a lot of his life dealing with global warming, we're trying to get our space program to be almost carbon neutral. I think we've got it down to being able to get somebody into space and back again. Coming back doesn't actually take much, at the same environmental cost as an economy class ticket from London to New York and back. So,
wow.
So we're getting, I think we can go further than that. So it is exciting. And I think the other challenge that we've set ourselves is that within the next 10 to 20 years, to try to make it affordable enough for most people in this room to be able to become astronauts, and definitely for their children to become astronauts. I think that challenge we can do. Hopefully a lot of you will be in space one day.
And is there any criteria for anybody who wants to fly to space, or?
Well, I mean, Stephen Hawkins has signed up to go to space with Virgin. He's been through centrifuge training. He's not the fittest of men. He feels that space travel is incredibly important for mankind because one day something could happen to people on Earth, whether it's disease or a giant asteroid or some foolish nuclear issue or whatever, means that mankind disappears. So, he thinks it's important that we start colonizing other planets. And, whether he's right or not, it's going to be great fun to try to colonize other planets anyway.
Well, let's move on now to a topic that I know is very close to your heart, your Virgin Unite Foundation. Sir Richard, I know you've talked often about balancing people and the planet with profit. I assume that's the vision behind Virgin Unite.
I think too much in the past you've had business leaders who have felt that politicians and social workers are the people to sort out the problems of the world, and it's for business leaders to create jobs and make money, which is important. But I think the extra twist should be that I think every single business in the world can, depending on its size, small businesses try to make a difference locally, slightly bigger businesses make a difference nationally, and bigger businesses still make a difference internationally, and pick a problem or two and have absolute determination to try to overcome those problems. Then I think we can really help governments get on top of most of the problems of the world. I think it's actually good for the business as well, because all the staff who are working for the companies can feel really, really proud of the companies they're working for. So, and it's far more satisfying actually than just worrying about the bottom line.
What are the main global challenges that Virgin Unite is focused on dealing with?
There's the Carbon War Room, which we set up, which we run just like a business, but it's there to try to work with the 18 sectors that pollute the world the most. So, and trying to get a gigaton of carbon out of each of those sectors. Not to try to damage the businesses, but try to actually improve the businesses. So the airline industry, the shipping industry, the cities, and so on. And I think one of the most important organizations that we've been involved in for the last 3 or 4 years is an organization called the Elders. And the Elders happen to be visiting Egypt at the moment. They've been set up by Nelson Mandela, try to get out into the world, use their moral authority to tackle some of the more intractable problems of this world and some of the conflicts that are taking place in this world. And on that note, I just want to say thank you.